My heart was beating so loud, I was sure David could hear it from across our bedroom. I lay there in the darkness of our Pearl District apartment, trying to keep my breathing steady and slow, like I always did when the herbal tea knocked me out. But tonight was different. Tonight I had poured that tea down the kitchen drain instead of drinking it. The digital clock on my nightstand glowed 11:47 p.m. David thought I had been asleep for almost an hour now. That's when it always started. The sounds I could never quite remember in the morning. Tonight, I would finally know what my husband did when he believed I was unconscious. I heard his bare feet padding across our hardwood floor. The floorboard near my dresser creaked the same spot that always woke me up during normal nights. But David had learned to step around it when he thought I was drugged. My skin crawled as I realized how many times he had done this before. Through my barely open eyelids, I watched him move like a shadow in our bedroom. He went straight to my purse on the chair by the window. The soft leather made a quiet rustling sound as he opened it. I wanted to scream, to jump up and demand answers, but something told me to wait to see how deep this went. David pulled out my phone that was supposed to be private, my phone that had a passcode he shouldn't know, but he unlocked it on the first try. The blue glow from the screen lit up his face as he scrolled through my messages. His expression was cold and focused, like he was studying for a test. This wasn't the loving husband who brought me flowers from the Saturday market. This was a stranger wearing David's face. He took photos of my text conversations with Emma, screenshots of my work emails, pictures of my banking app. Each click of the camera made my stomach twist tighter. How long had he been stealing pieces of my life while I slept? But that wasn't the worst part. David walked to our dining table, where I had left some papers from work insurance documents I had brought home to review. He spread them out carefully and took photos of each page. Then he opened our laptop, our shared laptop that I thought only I used for personal things. I watched him log into accounts. I didn't even know existed bank accounts with my name on them. Credit cards, I had never applied for an email address that looked like mine, but with one letter different. He was living a whole other life using my identity. My body wanted to shake with fear, but I forced myself to stay perfectly still. David was documenting everything about me, building some kind of file. But why? We were married. We shared everything. At least I thought we did. Then David did something that made my blood turn to ice. He pulled out a small notebook from his pocket and started writing. From where I lay, I could see him making marks next to dates, checking things off a list, planning something. The notebook had other names in it, women's names I didn't recognize, and next to some of those names, he had drawn a single line through them. David closed the notebook and looked directly at me. For a terrifying moment, I thought he knew I was awake, but he just smiled that same gentle smile he gave me every morning and whispered, "Sleep tight, Anna. Tomorrow's going to be a big day." He kissed my forehead like he always did, and I had to fight every instinct not to pull away from his lips, those same lips that told me he loved me, those same lips that had been lying to me for who knows how long. As David finally left the bedroom, I realized that everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about my husband, about my own life was wrong. The man I had been sharing a bed with for 3 years was a complete stranger, and whatever he was. What do you think David was really planning? I was running out of time. Drop your theories in the comments below. I want to hear what you think happens next. And if this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button so I know to keep going. 6 months ago, I thought I was the luckiest woman in Portland. David and I had just celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary at our favorite restaurant on the waterfront, and life felt perfect. Our Pearl District apartment was everything we had dreamed of when we moved here from Phoenix. David had gotten a promotion at his insurance company, and my graphic design business was finally taking off. That's when my sleep problems started. It began during one of Portland's endless rainy weeks in February. I had been tossing and turning every night, my mind racing with new client projects and deadlines. I would lie awake listening to the rain hitting our windows, watching the clock tick past midnight. Then 1 a.m., then 2 a.m. David noticed right away. He always noticed everything about me. "You look exhausted, honey," he said one morning, bringing me coffee in my favorite mug, the one with the Portland skyline that he had bought me for my birthday. "This can't go on. You need your rest." I loved how much he cared. While other husbands might ignore their wives' problems, David made mine his priority. He researched natural sleep remedies online. He bought blackout curtains for our bedroom. He even suggested I take a break from some of my freelance work. Your health is more important than money, he said, rubbing my shoulders as I sat at our dining table working late one evening. Let me take care of you. That's when he told me about his grandmother's herbal tea recipe. My ABA used to make this for the whole family back in Phoenix, David explained, pulling out an old piece of paper with handwritten notes in Spanish. She swore it could cure any sleep problem. All natural ingredients. Chamomile, valerian root, passion flower. Nothing harmful. The first night he brought me the tea, I was touched by how much effort he had put into helping me. He had driven all the way to a specialty herb shop in southeast Portland to get the ingredients. He brewed it fresh every evening, bringing it to me in bed with a gentle smile. Drink it while it's warm, he would say, sitting on the edge of our bed and watching me take each sip. Abua always said it works best when it's hot. And it worked. Oh, how well it worked. Within 20 minutes of drinking David's tea, I would feel a heavy drowsiness wash over me. Not the natural tiredness I was used to, but something deeper. Something that pulled me down into a sleep so deep that I wouldn't wake up until my alarm went off 8 hours later. You're like a different person, Emma told me during one of our weekly coffee meetings at our usual spot on Burnside Street. You seemed so much more relaxed. She was right. The constant exhaustion that had been plaguing me was gone. I felt rested in the mornings, ready to tackle my design projects with fresh energy. David was so proud of how well his grandmother's remedy was working. I told you my abuela knew what she was doing. He would say, bringing me fresh flowers from the Saturday market every weekend. She always said the old ways are the best ways. David became even more attentive during those first few months. He would cook my favorite meals, surprise me with little gifts, and plan romantic evenings around the city. We would walk through Laurelhurst Park on Sunday afternoons, and he would tell me stories about his childhood in Phoenix, about his grandmother, who had raised him after his parents died. She would have loved you, he said one evening as we watched the sunset from our apartment balcony. She always said I would find a woman who deserved to be taken care of. I felt so grateful to have a husband who cared so much about my well-being. When other wives complained about their husbands being distant or selfish, I would think about how lucky I was. David noticed when I was stressed he remembered my favorite things. He made sure I got the rest I needed. But looking back now, I realized there were signs I should have noticed. The way David always insisted on making the tea himself. How he would watch me drink every drop before kissing me goodnight. The strange satisfaction in his eyes when I would yawn and tell him I was getting sleepy. Most importantly, I should have wondered why a man who claimed to love me so much needed me to be unconscious for 8 hours every single night. The first time I noticed something was wrong. I was sitting at my desk in my downtown Portland design studio, staring at a client email I couldn't remember sending. The message was professional and detailed, discussing changes to a logo design I had apparently worked on the night before, but I had no memory of creating it. I scrolled through my computer files and found the design. It was good work. Actually, it was some of my best work. But I couldn't remember a single moment of creating it. The timestamp showed I had been working until almost 2 a.m., long after I had fallen asleep from David's tea. That's weird, I muttered, checking my browser history. There were searches for design inspiration downloads of stock photos, even online purchases for new software. All done. While I thought I was sleeping peacefully in my bed, I called David during my lunch break, feeling confused and a little scared. Honey, did I get up last night? After drinking the tea, I found work on my computer that I don't remember doing. David's voice was calm and reassuring. You were out like a light all night, Anna. Maybe you worked on it earlier and just forgot. You've been so busy lately, but I knew that wasn't true. I always remembered my work. Design was my passion, my art. I didn't just forget creating something. That weekend, I decided to visit Dr. Torres at OSU Hospital. I had been putting off my annual checkup, but these memory gaps were starting to worry me. Tell me about your sleep patterns, Dr. Torres said, reviewing my chart in her office, overlooking the Williott River. Any changes recently? I explained about the herbal tea and how well it had been working. Dr. Torres nodded, but I noticed a small frown cross her face. Memory gaps during sleep are unusual for someone your age, she said, especially if you're getting quality rest. Let's run some blood tests and see what we find. The tests came back normal. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect, according to Dr. Torres. Your blood work is remarkably clean, she told me during my follow-up appointment. Sometimes when people sleep too deeply, it can affect memory formation. I'd like you to keep a sleep diary for a few weeks. Write down everything you remember from each evening. I started the diary that night, but it only made things more confusing. According to my notes, I would drink David's tea around 10:30 p.m. and fall asleep by 11 p.m. But my computer showed activity well into the early morning hours. My phone had text messages I didn't remember sending. My car's GPS showed trips to places I had never been. The most disturbing discovery came when I checked my social media accounts. There were posts on my Instagram and Facebook that I had never written. Photos of our apartment taken at strange angles. Comments on other people's posts that sounded like me, but felt wrong somehow. One evening, I confronted David about it while he was preparing my tea in our kitchen. "David, I think something's wrong with me. I'm doing things I don't remember. Working, texting, even posting online. It's like I'm sleepwalking, but I'm doing complex tasks." David set down the steaming mug and pulled me into his arms. "Baby, you've been under so much stress with work. Maybe you're just having vivid dreams. Sometimes dreams can feel so real that we think they actually happened." His explanation made sense, but something in his eyes didn't match his concerned tone. There was something else there. Satisfaction, relief. I couldn't quite place it. That night, I pretended to drink the tea, but only took small sips. I wanted to see if I could stay awake and catch myself in the act of these mysterious activities. But even those few sips made me incredibly drowsy. I managed to stay conscious for maybe an hour before the heavy sleep pulled me under. The next morning, I found new files on my computer again, more social media activity, and something that made my blood run cold. My laptop's camera had been accessed multiple times during the night. Someone had been watching me sleep, recording me, but David had been right next to me in bed all night. I started paying closer attention to David's behavior, how he always made sure I finished every drop of tea, how he would check on me multiple times during the night, claiming he was just going to the bathroom, how he seemed to know things about my day that I had never told him. The man I had trusted with my life was hiding something, and whatever it was, it involved me being unconscious and vulnerable every single night. I couldn't eat my lunch. Emma and I were sitting in a quiet corner booth at a small restaurant in the Alberta Arts District, but my sandwich sat untouched on my plate. I had asked her to meet me here because I needed to tell someone what was happening, and Emma was the only person I trusted completely. "Anna, you look terrible," Emma said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath and told her everything. The memory gaps, the computer activity, the social media posts I didn't remember making. Emma listened without interrupting her expression, growing more concerned with each detail. "And David doesn't think any of this is strange?" she asked when I finished. "He says I'm just stressed and having vivid dreams." "But Emma, I know the difference between dreams and reality. Someone is using my computer, my phone, my accounts, and it's happening while I'm supposedly sleeping." Emma pulled out her laptop and opened it on the table between us. "Tell me exactly what David puts in this tea." I recited the ingredients David had told me about. Chamomile, valerian root, passion flower. Emma typed each one into a search engine, reading the results carefully. "These are all natural sleep aids," she said. "But Anna, look at this." She turned the laptop screen toward me. "It says here that valerian root can cause memory problems if you take too much, and passion flower can make people extremely drowsy for hours." My stomach dropped. "You think he's giving me too much?" "I think we need to find out exactly what's in that tea." Emma closed her laptop and leaned forward. "Anna, I'm going to suggest something, and you're probably not going to like it." I already knew what she was going to say, and she was right. I didn't like it. You need to pretend to drink the tea one night and see what happens. Stay awake and find out what's really going on. The thought terrified me. What if David caught me? What if I discovered something I wasn't ready to handle? But I knew Emma was right. I couldn't keep living in this fog of confusion and missing time. How would I even do that? He watches me drink it every night. Emma thought for a moment. "Bathroom break. Tell him you need to use the bathroom right after he gives you the tea. Pour it down the sink, rinse the cup, and come back. Then pretend to get drowsy like usual." We spent the rest of lunch planning every detail. Emma made me promise to text her before and after, and to call her immediately if anything went wrong. She even gave me her spare apartment key in case I needed somewhere safe to go. That evening, I walked through Laurelhurst Park, trying to calm my nerves. The familiar paths and tall trees usually brought me peace. But today, everything felt different. I was about to spy on my own husband. The man I had promised to love and trust was about to become a stranger I was investigating. I stopped at Whole Foods on my way home and bought groceries we didn't need just to delay the inevitable. David was already home when I arrived, cooking dinner and humming softly to himself. He looked so normal, so loving. Part of me wanted to forget this whole plan and just trust him. "How was your day, beautiful?" he asked, kissing my cheek as I put away the groceries. "Good," I managed to say. "Just busy with client work." We ate dinner and watched a movie together on our couch. David's arm around me like always. He seemed relaxed and happy occasionally, stroking my hair or squeezing my hand. This was the David I had fallen in love with, the David who brought me flowers and made me laugh. But as 10:30 approached, I noticed subtle changes in his behavior. He kept checking his watch. He seemed more alert, more focused. When he got up to make my tea, there was something different in his movements. More purposeful, more careful. "Here you go, sweetheart," he said, handing me the steaming mug. "Drink it while it's hot." I took the cup with shaking hands, hoping David couldn't see my fear. "Actually, I need to use the bathroom first. I'll be right back." David nodded, but I caught a flash of something in his eyes. Annoyance. Suspicion. It was gone so quickly, I might have imagined it. As I walked toward our bathroom, I knew there was no turning back. Tonight, I would finally learn the truth about my marriage. My hands were shaking as I poured the steaming tea down our bathroom sink. The herbal smell that I had once found comforting now made my stomach turn. I rinsed the mug quickly, making sure no trace of the liquid remained, then filled it with a tiny bit of water to make it look like I had drunk most of it. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wide with fear. In a few minutes, I would have to lie to my husband's face and pretend to fall into the deep sleep that had been stealing pieces of my life for months. "Anna, everything okay in there?" David's voice came through the door. "Coming?" I called back, forcing my voice to sound normal. I returned to our bedroom, where David was already in his pajamas reading a book. He looked up and smiled when he saw the nearly empty mug in my hands. "Feel better?" he asked. "Much better," I lied, climbing into bed beside him. I finished the small amount of water in the cup and set it on my nightstand. "That tea always works so well." David reached over and stroked my hair. "My grandmother's recipe never fails. You should start feeling sleepy soon." I nodded and snuggled against him, trying to act normal, while my heart pounded against my ribs. We lay there for about 10 minutes, David reading while I pretended to get drowsy. I let my breathing slow down and made my body go limp against his. "Getting sleepy, baby," David whispered. I mumbled, keeping my eyes closed. So tired, David set his book aside and turned off the lamp. The room went dark except for the soft glow from the streetlights outside our Pearl District apartment. I forced my breathing to become deep and regular, the way it always sounded when the tea really knocked me out. David lay still beside me for exactly 30 minutes. I knew because I could see the digital clock on his nightstand through my barely open eyelids. At 11:17 p.m., he carefully slipped out of bed. I had expected him to move around the room, maybe check my phone like I had suspected. But what David did next was far worse than anything I had imagined. He went straight to our closet and pulled out a small black bag I had never seen before. From inside the bag, he took out what looked like a professional camera with a long lens. He set it up on a tripod and pointed it directly at me. My skin crawled as I realized David had been photographing me while I was unconscious. But why? What could he possibly want with pictures of me sleeping? Then David did something that made me want to scream. He carefully pulled back our bedsheets, exposing my body in the thin nightgown I was wearing. He adjusted the camera angle and took several photos. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from moving from jumping up and demanding answers. But David wasn't finished. He went to our dining table and spread out papers. I recognized insurance documents from my work bank statements, even my birth certificate. He photographed each document carefully, making sure to capture every detail. Then he opened our laptop and logged into accounts I didn't recognize. Bank accounts with my name but passwords I had never created. Credit cards I had never applied for. Email addresses that looked like mine but weren't quite right. David was stealing my identity. But we were married. He already had access to everything I owned. Why would he need to create fake accounts in my name? The answer came when David made a phone call. "It's me," he said quietly into his cell phone. "Yes, she's out. The tea is working perfectly. No, she doesn't suspect anything. She thinks she's just having memory problems." There was a pause while the person on the other end spoke. The life insurance policy is already in place, David continued. $200,000. It should look completely natural when the time comes. Yes, I have all her personal information documented, bank accounts, passwords, everything. Another pause. I'm thinking another month, maybe 2. I want to make sure the medical records show a clear pattern of declining health. The doctor is already concerned about her symptoms. My blood turned to ice. David was planning to kill me. The tea wasn't just making me sleep. It was slowly poisoning me, creating symptoms that would eventually lead to my death. And he was documenting everything to make sure he could collect my life insurance money. But the most terrifying part was what David said next. Don't worry, I've done this before. It worked perfectly in Phoenix. I lay frozen in our bed, every muscle in my body screaming to run, while David continued his phone conversation just feet away from me. The man I had shared a bed with for 3 years was casually discussing my murder like he was planning a grocery list. The previous case took about 8 months total. David said into his phone, his voice cold and businesslike. But I was more careful then. This time, I'm moving faster because Anna's friend Emma is getting suspicious. Emma? My heart lurched. David knew that Emma was asking questions. Was she in danger too? No. No. David continued. I won't make the same mistakes I made with Rebecca. That one almost got messy when her sister started asking questions. Rebecca, there had been another woman, another wife, who David had slowly murdered while she trusted him completely. I wanted to vomit, but I forced myself to stay perfectly still and keep listening. David walked closer to our bed, and I could feel him looking down at me. I kept my breathing deep and steady, praying he couldn't hear my heart hammering against my ribs. The beauty of this method is that it looks completely natural. He said small doses of oleander extract mixed with the herbal tea. It causes heart problems, organ failure, all the symptoms of a young woman with undiagnosed health issues. The doctors never suspect poison because it mimics so many other conditions. Oleander. I remembered reading about that plant in college. It was beautiful, but deadly. Every part of it was toxic. David had been slowly poisoning me for months, and I had been grateful for his care. I've been documenting everything. David continued, walking to our dining table where my personal documents were still spread out. Medical visits, insurance policies, her declining health. When she dies, it will look like a tragic case of a young woman whose mysterious illness finally caught up with her. The person on the other end must have asked a question because David laughed softly. The life insurance company won't suspect anything. I'm a licensed insurance agent. I know exactly how these investigations work. As long as the death appears natural and I have proper documentation of her health problems, the payout is guaranteed. David moved to our laptop and started typing. I could see the screen's glow reflecting off the wall, and I realized he was updating some kind of file about me. A file that tracked my symptoms. My doctor visits, my gradual decline toward death. I estimate another 6 weeks, David said. Maybe 8 if I want to be extra careful. The oleander needs to build up in her system gradually. Too much, too fast, and the doctors might get suspicious. 6 weeks. David was planning to kill me in 6 weeks. The best part is that she's been helping me document everything. David continued with another cold laugh. She goes to the doctor complaining about fatigue and memory problems. She tells them about her sleep issues. She's basically building the medical case for her own mysterious death. I heard David opening drawers in our kitchen, and I realized he was probably getting more oleander extract to prepare tomorrow night's tea. How many times had I thanked him for taking such good care of me? How many times had I told him I was lucky to have such a loving husband? Rebecca's family never suspected anything, David said, returning to the bedroom. They were sad about her sudden illness, but the doctors confirmed it was natural causes. I collected the insurance money and moved here to Portland to start fresh. David had done this before. He had married a woman named Rebecca, slowly poisoned her to death, collected her life insurance money, and then moved to Portland to find his next victim. Me. Anna's even easier than Rebecca was. David continued, she's more trusting, more isolated. Her family lives across the country, and she only has a few close friends. When she dies, there won't be many people asking difficult questions. David was right. My parents lived in Florida, and I only talked to them once a week. My brother was stationed overseas with the military. Emma was really my only close friend in Portland. David had chosen me carefully. a woman who wouldn't be missed by too many people. I need to go. David said she's been sleeping deeper lately, which means the oleander is really taking effect. I want to take a few more photos for the documentation. David hung up the phone and walked back toward our bed. I squeezed my eyes shut and tried to control my breathing as he stood over me, probably deciding which angles would best show my declining health. The camera clicked several times in the darkness. David finally put the camera away and climbed back into bed beside me. I waited until his breathing became deep and regular, then carefully reached for my phone under my pillow. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type, but I managed to send Emma a text. Emergency call police. David poisoning me. Have proof. I turned on my phone's voice recorder and slipped it under my pillow, hoping to capture more evidence if David made another call. Then I lay there in the darkness planning my escape, while the man who wanted me dead slept peacefully beside me. At 3 a.m., David's phone buzzed with a text message. He stirred and checked it, then quietly got out of bed again. I watched through barely open eyes as he made another call. We have a problem, David whispered into his phone. Anna's friend Emma has been asking too many questions. She called Anna's doctor today, asking about her symptoms. My heart sank. Emma was trying to help me, too, but she was putting herself in danger. No, I can't wait 6 more weeks, David continued. I need to move the timeline up. Maybe make it look like an accident instead. An accident. David was planning to kill me sooner, and he was going to make it look like I had died accidentally. Maybe a fall down the stairs or a car crash or a drowning in the Willamette River. Tomorrow night, David said I'll give her a much larger dose of the oleander, enough to cause immediate heart failure. Then I'll call 911 and tell them she collapsed suddenly. The doctors will think it was a heart attack brought on by her mysterious illness. Tomorrow night, I had less than 24 hours to escape and expose David before he murdered me. David hung up and returned to bed, but I could tell he wasn't sleeping. He was planning, calculating, preparing to end my life. I waited until dawn, then pretended to wake up naturally. David was already awake, watching me with those cold eyes I now recognized. Good morning, beautiful, he said, kissing my forehead. How did you sleep? Really well. I lied. That tea always works so perfectly. David smiled, and I saw satisfaction in his expression. He thought he had me completely fooled. He thought I was just another trusting victim who would drink his poison without question. I'm going to make you an extra special tea tonight. David said I found a new ingredient that should help you sleep even better. The extra ingredient that would kill me. I got dressed and went to work like it was a normal day, but I spent every moment planning. I forwarded copies of all the recordings and photos from my phone to Emma's email. I wrote down everything I remembered from David's phone calls. I even researched oleander poisoning online and printed out articles about its symptoms. At lunch, I met Emma at a coffee shop in Southeast Portland. She looked terrified when she saw me. Anna? I called the police after I got your text. They want to talk to you. Good, I said. I have recordings of David planning my murder. He's been poisoning me for months with oleander extract in the herbal tea. Emma's face went white. Oh my God. Anna, we need to get you somewhere safe right now. Not yet. I need to get more evidence tonight. If I disappear now, David will just run away and find another victim. I have to catch him in the act. That evening, I went home and acted completely normal. David cooked dinner and seemed more affectionate than usual, probably because he knew it was my last night alive. When he brought me the tea, I could smell that it was different, stronger, more bitter. This smells amazing. I lied. What's the new ingredient? Just a little something extra to help you rest, David said, watching me carefully. I took the cup and pretended to sip it while David watched. Then I excused myself to the bathroom and poured the deadly mixture down the sink. But this time, I didn't come back to bed. Instead, I hid in our closet with my phone recording as David realized I wasn't getting drowsy. I watched him check the bathroom and find traces of the tea in the sink. I saw his face change from confusion to rage as he understood that I knew the truth. Anna, David called out, his voice no longer gentle. Anna, where are you? I know you're awake. I heard him searching the apartment, opening doors and checking every room. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it from inside the closet. That's when I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Emma's voice calling my name from our front door, followed by heavy footsteps and official voices. Portland Police. David Martinez, we have a warrant for your arrest. I burst out of the closet as 3 police officers entered our bedroom with their weapons drawn. David was standing by our bed, holding the empty teacup, his face twisted with fury. "Anna, you stupid girl," he snarled. "You have no idea what you've done." "I know exactly what I've done," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "I stopped you from murdering me like you murdered Rebecca." David's face went pale. He hadn't expected me to know about his previous victim. Detective Sarah Williams stepped forward. "David Martinez, you're under arrest for attempted murder conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." As they read David his rights and handcuffed him, I handed Detective Williams my phone with all the recordings. The evidence was overwhelming. David's own voice confessing to poisoning me, planning my death, and admitting to killing Rebecca in Phoenix. "We've been investigating Rebecca's death for months," Detective Williams told me later at the police station. "Her sister never believed it was natural causes. Your evidence just gave us everything we needed to prove David killed her too." The trial lasted 3 months. David tried to claim the recordings were fake, that I had made everything up. But the evidence was too strong. The police found oleander extract hidden in our apartment. They discovered the fake bank accounts David had created in my name. Most damning of all, they found David's detailed notes documenting both my poisoning and Rebecca's murder. Rebecca's family flew in from Phoenix to testify. Her sister cried as she described how Rebecca had complained about memory problems and fatigue before her sudden death. How David had been the perfect grieving husband who collected her life insurance money and disappeared. "He stole my sister's life," Rebecca's sister said on the witness stand. But Anna's courage saved other women from becoming his victims. The jury found David guilty on all charges. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. "Mr. Martinez," the judge said during sentencing, "you are a predator who used the sacred bond of marriage to hunt and kill innocent women. You will never have the opportunity to harm another person again." As they led David away in shackles, he looked at me one last time. But instead of the cold calculation I had seen in his eyes for months, I saw something else: defeat. The man who had thought he was so clever, so careful, had been outsmarted by the woman he had tried to murder. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment across town, finally feeling safe. Emma had helped me move and start fresh. Dr. Torres had confirmed that the oleander was completely out of my system, and my health was returning to normal. I had started a support group for women who had survived domestic violence. Rebecca's sister joined us, and together we worked to help other women recognize the warning signs that we had missed. The nightmares still came. Sometimes I would wake up thinking I could smell that herbal tea or feel David watching me in the darkness, but then I would remember that David was locked away forever and I was free. I never married again, but I learned to trust myself. I learned that love should never make you feel confused or helpless. Real love doesn't come with memory gaps and mysterious symptoms. David had thought he was so smart planning the perfect murder. But he had made one crucial mistake. He had underestimated the woman he was trying to kill. And that mistake cost him everything,